Welcome back to Area DMG. I'm your host, Phil Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, and today we're going to take a look at the Nintendo eShop, or rather, we're going to look at the top 10 games that are not on the Nintendo eShop, but should be. Now, Nintendo's been weird about digital releases on the eShop, but not as weird as, say, Sony with the PSP, but there's a couple games that aren't on there. We're going to look at the top 10 notable ones and a few interesting other ones that aren't on the Nintendo eShop at this current time. Now, before we start, let me give a few notable exceptions that are not in our top 10 list. Cubic Ninja. Cubic Ninja is not on the Nintendo eShop list because, well, it's not on the eShop because you can use this game to unlock homebrew on many of the different firmwares on the Nintendo 3DS and the new Nintendo 3DS. This is, of course, region locked, so you would need a version of it that's for your region. But yeah, this one's not on the eShop because it can be used to unlock homebrew. And the company that put it together is gone, so nobody would patch out the homebrew. You see stuff like VVVVVV, Citizens of Earth and Ironfall Invasion that got removed from the eShop due to being able to be exploited. Many of them have returned, but yeah, Cubic Ninja will probably never come back. Other ones are excluded for other issues. For example, Spirit Camera is an example of one that won't be on the eShop because it requires a little book for it to work properly, because it's an AR style game. So this doesn't work without this. And since you can't really get this digitally, unless they include it as you can't really get it digitally, so this one's not available digitally. So, let's get into our top 10 games that should be on the eShop but aren't. There's some weird ones that we're going to bring up that are interesting as well as we go down this list. Let's start it out with first one that should be on the eShop but isn't, Shinobi. This is one from Sega, and I'm surprised it's not on the eShop. It's a good action game. There's really no reason for it not to be on the Nintendo eShop, other than that Sega just hasn't gotten to do it, or gone on to do it. That's a pretty good action title, and if it were on the eShop, it would be subject to a lot of those digital sales, which would be wonderful. Now, another game similar to that, which isn't on the eShop, or rather in kind of the same swords and action genre, would be Chronicles Samurai Warriors. The first one isn't on the eShop for some reason. No real reason given, but the sequel and Hyrule Warriors are. Another one that has a sequel that's on the eShop that isn't on there isn't on the eShop itself is BlazBlue Eternal Continuum 2. There you go. Yeah. I think it's BlazBlue. It's a weird title. All the BlazBlue titles have weird names. That one's not on there for really no good reason. But Shinobi should be on there because this one's a good game. And it should be. The next one up on our list is Steel Diver. The original Steel Diver can be had at Best Buy or GameStop or whatnot for as low as 99 cents to about $5 new. This particular title, a launch title for the Nintendo 3DS, never made it to the eShop, although Steel Diver Sub Wars, an online multiplayer sub-combat game, did. Steel Diver, if they put it on the eShop, and if they put it for like $5, I'm sure it could find new fans. It's a good game, a little clunky at times, and the periscope mode is interesting. It's a good game and should be on the eShop. The only reason it isn't is because I don't think Nintendo wants to charge $5 for it, which is what the fair price for that game would be. Another game that should be on the eShop but isn't would be Bust-A-Move Universe. This is a Square Enix title, and I'm not sure why it's not on there, because there are other Square Enix titles on the eShop. Bust-A-Move Universe is, it's Bust-A-Move, or Puzzle Bobble. and it's good. It just isn't on the eShop for no real reason other than Square Enix being Square Enix. Although Square Enix also did not put Final Fantasy Theatrhythm on the eShop. Mainly because the sequel to Final Fantasy Theatrhythm, whenever this wants to focus, the sequel to Final Fantasy Theatrhythm, Final Fantasy Theatrhythm Curtain Call, is on the eShop. And that's the reason why that one's on the eShop. Now the next one up on our list would be Pinball Hall of Fame, the Williams Collection. This is a fantastic pinball game. I'm not sure who has the complete rights to this, but there is Zen Pinball on the eShop. This one would do well too. Also, why isn't Pokemon Pinball on the Nintendo eShop in North America? Which, we're talking about North America here. Because that's another one that should be. But anyways, this one should be because it's a good game. Lots of good tables. Pretty decent game, and I guess it's not there because I don't know who owns the rights to it. Well, another one where we do know who owns the rights to it, and we do know why it's not on the eShop, would be Tetris Axis. The Tetris company has this horrible, horrible idea that whenever a new Tetris game comes out, they remove all the old ones from digital distribution. So the Game Boy Tetris is no longer downloadable on Virtual Console, and Tetris Access, which is, in my opinion, superior to Tetris Ultimate, is no longer on the eShop. Kind of a shame. Kind of a sham. Kind of terrible. Next on our list is PacMan Galaga Dimensions. This one's interesting in that it has a version of PacMan Championship Edition on it, which is awesome. It's got some really great versions of the Pac-Man games on here, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be on the Nintendo eShop other than that, I don't know, it just isn't. Namco's really bad about getting stuff onto the eShop. In fact, some of them though, you can't fault them. For example, Tekken Tekken Prime Edition, Tekken 3D Prime Edition isn't on the eShop because half of this card is a movie. It has Dark Resurrection on it in 3D with an English dub, and I guess the rights to that would be ridiculous to try and negotiate. They could always remove it. I mean, the version of Resident Evil Mercenaries on the Nintendo eShop has the Resident Evil Revelations pre-demo removed from it. They could totally remove the movie from this and put it up there. It's a good game. But then that might ruin compatibility between physical owners and digital owners. But yeah, this one's worth it if you can check it out. Runs at 60 frames per second, even in 3D mode, if I remember correctly. Okay, oh, speaking of which, sometimes a lot of these just have to do with rights, is one of the reasons. For example, Project X Zone, the original one, is no longer on the eShop. Because Project X Zone 2 is. So because of that, Project X Zone 1 is not. Let's see, next on our list, and popping in at number 6 on the games that should be on the Nintendo eShop, is Heroes of Ruin. This is a kind of Diablo roguelike type style game from Square Enix. The company that put it together spent a lot of time working on this one. There's a lot of hype for it too before it came out because it was going to be a true multiplayer experience. The fact that it's not on the eShop kind of hurts it quite a bit. Had it been released on the eShop for like $10, $10 to $20, I think more people would play it. That would be worthwhile because it's a good game and the multiplayer for it is good. It's just almost impossible to find and impossible to find other people to play with. Another thing that's weirdly not on the eShop would be Konami's Dr. Electric and the, forgot the name of it. Oh, and the Forgotten Knights. This game got forgotten. It's essentially a Professor Layton wannabe with some weird Weird design choices. Not really a good game. There's a bunch of games that aren't really good that aren't on the eShop. Some weird shovelware ones. And then, of course, the Skylanders stuff, which requires all sorts of extra stuff. And some of the Disney Infinity Toy Box one aren't on the eShop. But yeah, kind of a weird choice. They could probably pop this up for like $10 to $14 on the eShop and it would sell well. Because, people like these types of games. Okay, another one that should be on the eShop but isn't would be Ridge Racer 3D. Another early title for the Nintendo 3DS. This one in particular is interesting because there's also a Ridge Racer on the Vita, which is bogged down in microtransactions and lack of cars. Whereas this game, while not looking as pretty as that one, has a huge amount of cars, really good roster. I'm thinking there might be some issues with the music licensing. And yeah, that's why Ridge Racer 3D isn't on there, although it really should be. This game you can get for really cheap at GameStop currently, and it's totally worth checking out, especially if you are a Ridge Racer fan. Good game. Just nobody really can find it or play it, which is kind of a shame. Another game that's not on the eShop but should be in our list is Cave Story 3D. Now, there is a version of Cave Story on the Nintendo eShop, but it's the pixelized version, and it's also in 3D. This one has reconfigured areas, some interesting new additions, and it's just a really interesting take on an old classic. Worth searching down or looking for if you collect Nintendo games and such. Worth playing through. Some people prefer the original. Some people like this one a little bit better. I'm one of the people who prefers the original, but I wouldn't mind having this and the original digitally on my new Nintendo 3DS. It's kind of a shame it's not on the eShop. That is on Nicalis and NIS, really. Now, another game that's on the eShop, but not on not the physical version, would be Nano Assault. Nano Assault Neo, or now I think it's Nano Assault Neo or Nano Assault DX on the Nintendo 3DS eShop, is a superior version of this game with added tweaks and the ability to use the Circle Pad Pro on it, which makes it more of a superior version of the game. So it's not really missed that the original version isn't on the eShop, considering all the enhancements made to the version that is. Now, the next one on our list, we're getting down to our top 3 games that should be on the Nintendo eShop but aren't. And we're going to go with Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. Now, the only reason this one's not on the eShop probably has to do with Square Enix and rights when it comes to music, which is one of the big things standing in the way of Kingdom Hearts being available digitally on many platforms. And it's really kind of annoying. I wish they could get that out of the way because I think they could sell even more copies of this if it were available on the eShop. And it's a good game. Now we're down to our top 2. And the second game that I really feel should be on the Nintendo eShop but isn't, that would be Dead or Alive Dimensions. Now, Dead or Alive Dimensions was another early Nintendo 3DS title, and it was fantastic. I mean, it runs at 30 FPS in 3D, 60 FPS in 2D, has a ton of fighters, all the combo systems, a weird story mode that goes through the first 4 games and gets you caught up for last round, Dead or Alive 5, and there's a ton of costumes. Now, the costumes for it were distributed via Spot Pass over a period of time. They could really just be like, hey, you want these, we'll just include them with it. That's what they should do. This is a game where, I love this game. I've put in, I would say, like 90 hours into a fighting game when this came out. It was, to me, much better than Super Street Fighter 4 3D edition, and just a better game overall. Lots of fun. I've spent a lot of time with this game. It's got really good multiplayer, And it's really one of those games where I wish it were released digitally because it's one that I wouldn't mind having at all times on me. So that's our top 9 games that should be on the Nintendo 3DS eShop. Can you tell what this one's going to be? Anyways, to recap, Shinobi, the original Steel Diver, the Williams Collection Pinball Hall of Fame, PacMan and Galaga Dimensions, Heroes of Ruin, Ridge Racer 3D, Cave Story 3D, Kingdom Hearts 3D Dream Drop Distance, Dead or Alive Dimensions, and now the final game that should be on there but isn't, Tales of the Abyss. Tales of the Abyss is a port of the PS2 game of the same name. There's some minor 3D stuff added to it, but overall, it's a pretty good game. Namco just has problems getting their stuff on the eShop for some reason. With games like Tales of Zestiria, Berseria, and all that other stuff gaining ground, it would be a real shame if they don't finally release Tales of the Abyss in a way that's easy for fans of the Tales series to track down and buy. The Nintendo eShop. So, that is our top 10 games that should be on the Nintendo eShop but are not. What we might want to do is contact some of these companies on Twitter, Facebook, and contact Nintendo on Twitter, Facebook, and demand these. Because we deserve them. They're pretty good. Especially that bottom row. I mean, these are some really great games. And I feel that the audience for them could be expanded if they were available on the Nintendo eShop. So hit Twitter and hit Facebook and let people know if you know about it, if you agree with this list. Is there a game that's not on the Nintendo eShop that was released physically that you feel should be on the Nintendo eShop? Let me know in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. And until the next video comes out, you are now caught up.